So is my screen visible to all of you now? You can just unmute and let me know yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Once my screen is on share, it will be little tricky for me to open the chat again and again. So I will keep checking the chat, but in between my instructions. So if you want to say something urgently, just unmute and let me know. All right, so let's begin. So in the beginning, we will do a short 1 or 2 minute activity. And after that, we'll go back to our discussion around what are the limitations of electron microscope. After that, we will look at how these limitations of electron microscope are resolved and go through some important organelles under cell ultrastructure. So mainly I wanted to focus on nucleus, Golgi bodies and endoplasmic reticulum in our cell ultrastructure discussion today. So let's begin. Are we all ready to start?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the activity today is I will be displaying different images on screen and you have to share by unmuting yourself and recognizing which microscope was actually used to take this image. Okay. So uh, to be able to know whether a picture is taken from a microscope, first thing you have to analyze is whether an electron microscope was used or a light microscope was used. Okay, so first identify that and then identify if it is an electron microscope, was it a scanning electron microscope used or a transmission electron microscope. Okay, we have not started the questions yet. So in this image, you are looking at guard cells which are guarding the stomata of a leaf, and this whole image of guard cells are actually taken from a scanning electron microscope because it shows the surface of the undersurface of the leaf, not the inside of each cell. On the other hand, if you look at this image, this is an image taken with the help of a compound or a light microscope, because here you can see the cytoplasm and you can see the cells are visible, not the chloroplasts. So there is a limit in its resolution. You can't see each chloroplast very clearly, but you're seeing a cell with clear cytoplasm and chloroplasts in it. You can also see nucleus, which are darker patches. Okay. Now on your screen is an image. What do you think? What kind of image is this? Is it an electron micrograph or is this a photomicrograph? As in, is this a photograph taken from an electron micrograph image or a photomicrograph image? You can unmute and share, or you can share in the chat box. Anyone?
I think it is taken from an electron micrograph.
This is an electron micrograph. That means this image is first viewed under electron microscope and a photograph of it is taken. Okay, so if this is an electron micrograph, what kind of electron micrograph was used? Scanning or transmission? Shraddha?
I think scanning.
This is a scanning electron micrograph because you can see the details of the structure of hairs and small dots or pigments or the details of the eye of the insect. Everything is on the surface. So you're seeing the differences of things in 3 dimension on the surface. So this is SEM, or scanning electron microscope.
Miss Amrita, but doesn't an electron microscope give a black and white image?
Yes, that's a good question. So in this image, this is a false coloring image. You can later on edit and add colors to your electron micrograph image. Whereas in photomicrograph, you can originally see the actual color of your specimen or if you have added any stain or dye to the specimen, you can see that color. But in electron micrograph, you will always see a black and white image. Later on, with photo editing skills, you can add false colors. So this is a false colored SEM electron micrograph. What about this? These are the suckers in the feet of an octopus. What kind of image do you think this is? Anyone? The key is to look at details. How detailed is the image, and will a compound microscope be able to show this much resolution or not? Okay, someone has written something in the chat. Geetanjali says it is scanning electron microscope. Again, that is correct. This is a scanning electron microscope, and you can see only the surface details. Even octopus can range from large sizes to very small, but not, this is not a microscopic octopus, but you can see the arms and every detail of the sucker in the feet of the octopus using an electron microscope image. What about this? This is the inner lining of the intestine. You can see large finger-like projections called villi, and different layers of tissues. Which microscope must have been used to take this image? Share, either unmute or write in the chat box. Any thoughts? Alfia, what do you think?
I think it's a transmission electron microscope image.
Bushra also thinks it's TEM, Geetanjali TEM. Shraddha, your answer is right. Shraddha writes, this is light microscope. Absolutely correct. This is not an electron microscope image. So inside in the inner lining of your intestine is layers of cells. So you are not looking at one cell in detail over here. You are looking at many cells in the form of layers of tissues. I'm sorry, layers of tissues. So each finger-like projection is a villi, and in each villi there are thousands of cells. Under the villi there's a layer of muscle. Then there is a layer of blood vessel where you can see tiny dots or specks, which are like the RBCs flowing in the red blood cells. So you can see many layers of cells in one field view. That means the resolution is not very high, but you are magnifying and seeing the tissues. So this is a light microscope. Another thing is you can see the stain which is used. Some stains are staining purple and some stains are pink in color. That means dye has been used on the specimen. This is not false coloring. This is original dye or stain color of your specimen. So this is a photo micrograph taken with the help of a light microscope. Next on screen, who can tell me what all you can see in this image, and based on that you can guess what type of image this is. Geetanjali, can you tell?
This is mitochondria and it's a TEM image.
Yes, this is a transmission electromicrograph. And Geetanjali, am I only seeing mitochondria in this image, or are there other things also?
I think there is some.
What are those tube-like structures surrounding the mitochondria?
Cilia?
Cilia? Inside the cell?
Huh?
Did you say cilia? Gitanjali, did you say Celia?
No, I didn't.
Okay, then someone said something I couldn't hear. Any thoughts what these are? These structures are? These lines of tubes?
Lysosomes.
They are the endoplasmic
Are these
reticulum.
lysosomes?
No. Lysosomes will appear like spherical bodies cut.
Huh?
You will see what a transmission electron microscope does. It will cut the cell into slices, right? So in whichever position the lysosome will be, it will get sliced. Lysosome will not look like thin threads, like threads of tubes. But endoplasmic reticulum does look like that, right? So these are all the tubes of the endoplasmic reticulum skeletal structure. And in the margin of these tubes, you can see tiny black dots. These are the ribosomes. So this is RER, rough endoplasmic reticulum, all around one single mitochondria. Okay. And inside the mitochondria, you can see the finger-like foldings, which are called the cristae. Okay. So this is the transmission electron micrograph of the mitochondria. What about this? What kind of image is this? Photomicrograph or electromicrograph? Quickly, let's share in the chat box. What do you guys think? Okay, Shraddha, your answer is wrong. Uzma, what do you think?
I don't know, Miss Amrita.
So what is the key to understand whether this is an electron micrograph or photomicrograph? Look at what the object that you're seeing and the detailing that you can see. If you can see something inside a cell in lots of detail or a surface with lots of tiny detail, then definitely it is electron microscope. But if the smallest thing that you can see is a cell only, then what do you think this must be?
Light microscope.
Yes. So you're right. This is a light microscope image. That means it's called a photomicrograph. Photo word is used when you use light microscope, and electron microscope is used to take electron micrographs. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see if there's one more. What do you think about this, Bushra? What microscope was used to take this image?
I think it is light microscope.
No, this is a trick. This is an electron microscope used to see red blood cells, even though you can see the red blood cells using a light microscope. But here an electron microscope is used. How did I know? Because I can see the details of the surface, the biconcave shape of the RBCs very clearly. So this is a scanning electron micrograph. Let's see if someone wrote that in the chat. Okay, Gitanjali has written so, but she has also written light microscope. Okay, so this is a scanning electron micrograph. And what about this one? Who can tell me what this is? The same micrograph was used. Once you saw it in color and once you saw it in black and white. First, tell me what is this thing?
This is chloroplast.
Correct, this is chloroplast. And this is a photomicrograph or electron micrograph? Think, a chloroplast is an organelle inside the cell. You can see things inside the chloroplast also clearly.
Then it will be transmission electron micrograph.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Shraddha.
Transmission electron micrograph.
Yes, this is a TEM or transmission electron micrograph. You can see the thylakoids, the stroma, and all the internal features of the chloroplast. So this is an electron micrograph. Okay, let's come to our main discussion topic, that is what are the limitations of electron microscope. So in the last discussion we had studied that electron microscopes have better resolution. That means it can show much more details. As small as something which is 5 nanometer can be clearly visible under an electron microscope. And if two 5 nanometer structures are lying close to each other, in a light microscope it won't be visible, or it will be visible as a single spot. But in an electron microscope you can see those 5 nanometers objects sitting side by side. You can tell that there are two objects over there. That's better resolution. And when resolution is good, you can magnify the image even more, because the image will not get pixelated or blurred or hazy. Okay, but the electron microscope have their own limitations also. Okay, the two main limitations are on the screen. One is because electron microscopes use electron beam, and light microscopes use light. Light has a wavelength which has enough energy to penetrate or to pass through thick specimen. Not very thick, but comparatively thicker specimen can be still be seen under light microscope. But under electron microscope, if your specimen is thick, I'm not talking about big, I'm talking about thickness. If the specimen is thick, then electron beams will not be able to pass through the specimen. This will be a problem in transmission electron microscopy. When you want to see the internal features of your specimen, your electron beams won't enter the specimen, won't penetrate. Second problem is if your specimen has different types of ions and molecules in it, that means it may have charge, and electron beams themselves are negatively charged. So they may over attract or repel the electron beam. If they are repelling, then it's a big problem, because the electron beam will get scattered in your in the column of your microscope, and it will not project a very good image. You will get a disturbed image. Then there is a second problem. So the first problem is related to the specimen. If it is thick, or if the specimen is repelling the electron beam, the image won't be clear. The second problem is related to the electron microscope's internal structure. Inside the electron microscope, if there is air has particles which may be charged, and that will disturb the electron beam. Okay, so here what I'll do is we will read two short paragraphs from our Hodder textbook and see how these limitations of electron microscope were overcome or resolved or solved. Okay, so I will ask one of you to quickly paraphrase what the two problems are, and then you are going to tell me. Yeah, so first let's quickly paraphrase what the two problems are with electron microscope. And who is going to paraphrase? Alfia, tell us what the two problems of electron microscope are. Okay, am I audible to everyone clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, Alfia, can you hear me?
Yes, Miss Amrita.
Yeah, so
Miss
I
Amrita,
just,
there was some noise. So there was some noise at my place, so I couldn't hear.
no, my point is, can you paraphrase the two problems that we face while using electron microscope that I just told?
I did not listen.
Okay, that's very unfortunate. Please try to find a space where there is less noise, because I thought all of you can hear me. What about Bushra? Can you tell the two problems, limitations?
Yes.
Yes.
The first one was the thickness of the specimen,
Okay.
and the second one was
So, sorry to stop you. What about the thickness of the specimen is the problem with electron microscope?
mm, the electron beam cannot pass through the specimen.
If they are very thick. Okay.
Yeah, if they are very thick.
Okay.
And the second one was something related to air.
No. The first one has two parts. There is another problem. If the specimen has charges, what will happen?
It will reflect the electron beam.
Okay.
And
Then comes
that
the
was
air part.
and the second problem was the air part.
What is it? What is it? State it clearly.
Uh, what?
Can someone help, Bushra? Let's see, girls.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
Shraddha.
air. So Uzma, you can speak.
No one remembers. That means no one was listening. Only I was talking to myself.
I can. So air has some particles which are charged and that can disturb the electrons.
Yes. So these are the limitations of electron microscope. Let's read it once again and not forget. Quickly take a read. What are the two problems? First problem is related to the specimen. Second is related to the air inside the microscope. Okay. I'm waiting for everyone to read the two limitations carefully. Okay, are we done reading? Shraddha, Uzma, Bushra, Alfia, Sakshi, everyone read the two limitations? Bushra,
Yes.
Yes.
Purta, Gitanjali,
Yes.
Nikita?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What are we going to
Yes.
do next? Did you read the instruction at the bottom of the slide? Nikita? Nikita, can you tell us what we are going to do now, next?
We will read some more details about this.
Yes, now we are going to read that if this is the limitation, what is the solution to this problem? How can we resolve these limitations in electron microscope? Okay, so let's read. I will set the page, just give me a moment. Okay, so limitations of electron microscope and how these are overcome. The electron microscope has revolutionized the study of cells. It has also changed the way cells can be observed. The electron beam travels at very high speed but very low energy. This has practical consequences for the way biological tissues is observed at very high magnification and resolution. Next, we look into these outcomes and the way the difficulties are overcome. Number one, electrons cannot penetrate materials as well as light does. Specimens must be extremely thin for electron beam to penetrate and for some of the electrons to pass through. Biological specimens are sliced into very thin sections using a special machine called a microtome. Then, the membranes and any other tiny structures present in these sections must be stained with heavy metal ions like lead or osmium to make them absorb electrons at all. We say they become electron opaque. That means the organelles are stained with a certain type of heavy metal which will attract electron, not deflect it. Okay. Only then will these structures stand out as dark areas in the image. So this is the first problem and its solution. Let's look at the second problem. Second problem is air inside the microscope would deflect the electron and destroy the beam. The interior of the microscope must be under vacuum. Because of vacuum, no living specimens can survive inside the electron microscope when in use. Water in the cells would boil away in a vacuum. As a result, before observations are possible, a specimen must have all the water removed. Sections are completely dehydrated. This has to be done whilst keeping the specimen as lifelike as possible. This is a challenge. Given that cells are 80 to 90% water, it is after the removal of water that the sections have electron dense stains added. The image produced when this type of section is observed by electron microscope are called transmission electromicrograph. Okay, I will now leave you to read it once again if you want to read once more. Let me try to bring both on one screen. Yeah. Okay, I'll pause for a minute for you to read it once again. And then we'll go back to the slide to answer some questions, okay?
Miss Amrita,
Yeah.
the screen isn't clear for me to read.
The screen is in?
Clear, it's like blur.
Okay,
I can't see the words clearly.
Let me increase the font size. Is this better?
No.
Oh, okay. What about this?
Yeah, it's somewhat clear.
Now?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. Let's read the first problem and solution and then we'll go to the next one.
Samrita, should you make notes of these?
You have the Hodder ebook with all of you? Do you guys
Yeah.
have a copy of the ebook?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can later on after the class take notes on this. And this is there in your module 18, 19 and 20. In one of these modules, you will find this activity. Okay, just let me know if you're done reading the first part. I'll scroll to the second. Guys, you need to mute yourself. Okay, most of us are done. So I'll be scrolling to the second problem. That is the problem with air in the microscope. Let's start reading now.
Miss Amrita, could
Yes.
you explain what does it mean by this has to be done whilst keeping the specimen as lifelike in structure as is possible?
Okay. So what happens is when we all know that the cytoplasm is a jelly-like structure which is inside a cell, and in it all our organelles are floating. Okay. Now if the cytoplasm is 90% water and I dehydrate the cell, there is highest chance what will happen to a cell? It will completely shrink. Okay. When it shrinks, that means it's drying up, and all of its organelles have a highest possibility chance of breaking or getting damaged. Once it is damaged and then you view it under electron microscope, your specimen will actually not look like what it was with water in it. So the lots of technical and operational knowledge is required on about how to prepare a specimen before placing it inside the electron microscope. Whereas in case of a light microscope, any teacher can be trained or a student can be trained how to operate it, and then you can see your specimen. But under electron microscope, this is where professional training is required, like how to dehydrate your specimen so that the specimen doesn't lose its lifelike appearance. Does that make sense, Rimjim?
Yes. So is it that the specimen is not completely dead when it's inside the microscope?
How will the specimen be alive if you completely dehydrate it first and second put it in vacuum? Will that specimen even survive for a microsecond?
No.
No, that's what you read in the first paragraph. You cannot put live specimen in electron microscope. Once you're seeing something under electron micrograph means it either has to be a dead specimen or a part of the body of a specimen. So you don't have to kill the specimen, but you are just killing the cells that you want to view.
But then
Once you
as you
remove
said,
all the water and you expose it to vacuum, it has to be a dead thing. It cannot be a live object.
but then as you said, if it's dead, it doesn't resemble its original structure as it was.
That's why it says life-like. It's not saying alive. It's saying life-like. The more you can preserve, the better you can view, right? So nowadays, with more advancement in microscopy, you can actually use different types of ions and charged particles to coat the surface of a cell so that even when you dehydrate it, it will not shrink. So those are highly advanced techniques. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, what about everyone else? Are you okay with now going back to the slides?
Miss Amrita,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Hmm.
Can you explain why the specimen needs to be dehydrated? It said
Okay,
that
why?
water in the cell would boil in the water.
Mm-hmm. So what happens in
What
vacuum?
is happening?
Vacuum has no matter in it. There's no solid, liquid or gas or any particles in vacuum. Because of that, uh, normally in our atmosphere, the atmosphere is exerting a pressure on our body, and our own body, that is the blood inside our body, is coupling that force, and action and reaction is happening. Okay, we are not feeling it, but our body is bearing the atmospheric pressure on us. So because of the atmospheric pressure and our blood pressure being almost equal, our body has a certain shape and size. If that atmospheric pressure was not there, our blood pressure is so high that it will pierce through our blood vessels and spurt out, or our body will expand. Okay. Same thing happens with water in vacuum. When water is in vacuum, it will try to expand because it has so much space. There's nothing to restrict water. There's a lot of space in vacuum. So it can expand. Liquids have no definite shape. So they can expand as much as they can. And while expanding, kinetic energy of the particles will increase. And so the water will start boiling. When particles have more energy means they get higher amount of radiation energy. So the water will start boiling, and when the water inside a cell will start boiling, the specimen will die and it will get damaged. Basically all the particles, organelles and subcellular particles will start frying inside the specimen itself. So it is better to remove the water and then place the specimen in the electron microscope. Okay?
Miss Amrita,
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yes.
So, in the first point, it said that the specimen has to be really thin so that the electron beam can penetrate through it.
Yes.
But then, how are we able to? No, that's for scanning electron microscope. Yeah, but it's So I have the question still there. So, how can we see the full body, like the layer, the details of the specimen, like an insect? If we are viewing it under a microscope, then how can we see all the details?
You can always increase the field view. Okay, you can increase how much area you want to view under the electron microscope. Even if you're viewing a bigger area, you will still see details. But what happens in a light microscope, when we keep moving our lens away from the specimen, does the specimen look clear? It starts becoming hazy, and then finally you'll not be able to see the specimen. So first thing, when we see a specimen on our slide, what we do, we touch the broad adjustment and we start scrolling it so that our objective lens comes closer to the specimen, isn't it? Here is a specimen, we bring our lens closer. But when you bring your lens closer, your field of view becomes smaller. Okay. But in electron microscope, you can increase the field of view. You can see more things in one space, but still have the same clarity. Okay. So because of that, you can see an insect, you can see a tentacle of a squid or an octopus's feet fully in view under the electron microscope with equal amount of clarity and no blurriness. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
So remember any lens which has better resolution, that gives you more facilities of seeing many more things at the same time. But lenses which have lower resolution, you have to bring them very close to your sample to see them, because the resolution is low. So clarity will only come when you bring them close. Recall that video that we saw. Cars which are far away show a single light. Cars which come closer, we can see both of their headlights clearly, right? That's because our eye has a limit of resolution. Same thing happens with light microscope. You bring the specimen close, you can resolve it better. But still there is a limit. But in electron microscope, because resolution is very high, even from a long distance, you can clearly see details on your specimen. Okay? Any other questions? All right, I'll now move to the slides because I think we should quickly wrap up this discussion. So most of the time in your exam, you will get questions like this. So left-hand side column, these are the problems or limitations of electron microscope. Right-hand side, write down what is the solution to these problems. Okay. So what is the solution to resolve this thickness related issue? Anyone remembers from the reading? Nikita, how is the problem of thick specimen resolved while viewing under electron microscope? What can be done?
So the specimen is cut thin, use of microtome machine.
Yes, a microtome is used to cut the specimen into ultra thin slices. Okay, next problem is the specimen is repelling the electron beam or deflecting it. How to resolve that problem, Bushra?
That was adding electron stains, so the specimen could absorb the
yes.
Absorb the electron.
Make the specimen electron dense, that is coat it with heavy metal ions so that it will absorb electron and create patches or dark spaces in your photographic plate. Okay. The second problem was air inside the microscope, and we just discussed the way to resolve is to make the inside of the electron microscope completely vacuum. But by making it vacuum, what is one limitation that will always remain? We will never be able to see what kind of specimen. because of the vacuum.
Could you repeat your question, Ms. Amita?
I was saying that to resolve the second problem, we make the inside of the electron microscope vacuum. But because we make the inside of the electron microscope vacuum, there will always be one problem that can never be solved. What is that?
But we won't be able to see living cells.
Yes, we will never be able to see live organisms under electron microscope. We always have to take preserved forms, life-like forms. Okay, these are the answers. Let's take a look at them. Okay. All right. If you have any further questions regarding this, you can always post your questions in the WhatsApp group or directly ask them to me. Next, we move on to something that we got to know about cells, and the whole credit goes to electron microscope. That is understanding more details about other cell organisms. This was completely unknown to the world of biology until the discovery of electron microscope. So the electron microscope was discovered in the year 1961, I guess. And only after that, so much knowledge about each and every organelle was known, because before that, nobody could see them. So nothing was known about these organelles. So we say that each cell of an organism is a metabolic compartment designed to perform a specific function. Depending on that function, each cell type has an internal structure that's different. So from this statement, I get to know that cells have a general structure, but all cells will not look alike. Based on what function they have to perform, they will customize their internal structure accordingly. But the overall general structure will have some similarities. Okay. Now, there's something called metabolic compartment. What does that mean? So metabolic comes from the word metabolism, which means sum total of all the biochemical reactions happening inside your body, which is helping in making or breaking substances that will maintain the life of the organism. So sum total of all the chemical reaction that helps in producing energy and letting the organism survive or stay alive. That is metabolism. So in our body, we know that sum total of life processes happen in our respiratory system, digestive system, circulatory system, excretory system, on our skin. But these are systems made up of many organs and tissues. The lowest level at which these metabolisms are happening is inside our cells. So the smallest unit of metabolic compartment is our cells. Okay. So when we are studying about structure of cells, we come across three keywords, and the fourth one you will get introduced in the next slide. First is cytosol. So your cytoplasm will have some parts which are more jelly-like and some parts which are very watery. Okay. The watery part of your cytoplasm is called cytosol. And I told you what metabolism means, the sum total of all reactions that take place in the life processes of an organism. And then you have organelles, which are organ-like. The meaning of the word organelle means they're organ-like. They behave like an organ, but they are very microscopic and they work at a very smaller level. Okay, so these are structures which are found within your cell. Then we come to the fourth keyword, that is ultrastructure. So ultrastructure means you are seeing the structure of the cell, and ultrastructure will show you more details of the cell. And this is only known through an electron micrograph, not through a photomicrograph. Okay, so the detailed structure revealed by electron microscope of a cell is the ultrastructure of the cell. On your screen, you are looking at the ultrastructure of just one area of an animal cell, not the whole animal cell, just one portion. Again, this is a false colored electron micrograph. On the right side, the image that just emerged is a drawn image. So normally what scientists do, they look at images on the microscope or on the screen of an electron micrograph, and then they draw it to make sense of what they are seeing. So these are called plan diagrams. You will also have to make plan diagrams in your practical exams using a compound microscope. Okay. So you have to know that when you're drawing a cell using a compound microscope, which organelles you should draw. And if it is an electron micrograph or a photograph that Ms. Amrita has given to you, then looking at it, which organelles should you draw? Because when you're looking at a cell under light microscope, you will not be able to see so much detail. And if you draw mitochondria, ribosomes in your drawing, then your examiner will straight away give you a 0, because no schools possess electron microscope. All of you are viewing the cell with light microscope. Okay. So you have to be careful about what you're seeing and what you're drawing. It has to be corresponding to each other, not a made up drawing. This is a generalized animal cell. I'll just pause for a few seconds so that you can see each and every organelles and their labeling. So it is very frequently seen that animal cells have lysosomes, which are more prominent, whereas plant cells don't possess specifically structures like lysosomes. They release their hydrolytic enzymes outside the cell, but they don't have lysosomes per se. But rough endoplasmic reticulum, nucleus, mitochondria, these are always there. Again, centrosomes and centrioles are more specific to animal cells. They are absent in plant cells. Then you can see these microtubules. They are like the railroads or the highways. So they are all over your cytoplasm like a mesh. And if organelles are traveling from one end of your cell to another end, they are traveling over these microtubules. So these microtubules form cellular pathways. So this diagram of an animal cell is called a generalized cell diagram. The question is, why is it called generalized? Why not an animal cell detail or something like that? Why is it called generalized? You can share your thoughts in the chat box. Why is this animal cell diagram called a generalized animal cell? If you have any thoughts that you can share, you can unmute and tell also.
Is it because the structure inside these organelles is not shown?
No. Just a few slides ago, I told you that something about the structure of a cell suits its function. That's a hint. Something related to that. Okay, Gitanjali writes, not all animal cells contain all the organelles shown in the figure. Uzma writes, because I think almost all the animal cells components are included in this one cell. I think Shraddha says every animal cell is different from each other. There are many types of cells and they would have different organelles. Yes, so mostly you guys are right on track. This is called a generalized cell because all animal cells will not have all the cellular organelles like this, properly organized. Some may have many more mitochondria than this because they need more ATP, more energy, and mitochondria produces these. So they're constantly respiring and they need more ATP, but they will have less number of microtubules, or their endoplasmic reticulum will not have so many branches. So there will be some differences. This is not a typical animal cell. This is a generalized animal cell. So that's correct. The next thing on the screen is a plant's typical ultrastructure. Okay, this is a typical plant cell, and it's showing the ultrastructure of the plant cell. Point out some features you find common besides the presence of chloroplast and cell wall. So what are some common features between a plant and an animal cell? I think all of us know, so we don't need to spend much time on this. We know that the nucleus is common, the ribosomes, the endoplasmic reticulum, the mitochondria, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi body, these are all common. Okay. But what is specially found in plant cells but not in animal? One is the permanent vacuole. Animal cells have temporary vacuoles, but plant cells have permanent central vacuole. And they also have the cell wall, which is absent in animal cell. Now, why is this diagram called a typical plant cell? Because typically all plant cells possess more or less this kind of structure. This is the composition. Okay. Whereas mostly, except root cells, almost all plant cells will possess this kind of structure. So this is a typical structure. Okay, next. Here is a generalized plant cell diagram. Sorry, generalized plant cell, because this plant cell will have all the features. Maybe all plant cells may not have all of them altogether. Okay. Okay, so right now on screen is a worksheet which you will be doing in your Edmodo modules. Those who have already done it, they might have come across this worksheet where they have to label different organelles and write their function. So I will just quickly ask 2 or 3 from here without spending much time. So who can tell me what is number 9? Sakshi. Sakshi, can you tell me what number 9 is showing, labeling?
Nucleus.
No, this is a structure. Number 7 is nucleus. Number 9 is something inside the nucleus.
Nucleus.
Correct. This is a nucleolus, or a darker region inside the nucleus. All right. Who can tell me? Alfia, can you tell me what is 13?
Golgi body.
Golgi body, correct answer. Who can tell me number 4? Uzma, what is number 4?
Number 4.
Can't hear Uzma. Number 4.
Is it the centrosome? I don't know.
Number 4. This is number 4.
Centrosome?
No. How can that be centrosome? This is a smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Number 4. Okay.
Okay.
Number 14. Shraddha, number 14.
Centrioles.
Can't hear.
Centriole.
Centriole is the correct answer. Pooja, what is number 6? Pooja, can you hear me? Okay, I think Pooja is having connectivity issue. Pooja, you can type your answer in the chat box. Number 6. Can you tell what is number 6? Gitanjali, can you tell?
Number 6 is
Yes, correct. Both Pooja and Gitanjali are correct. It's the mitochondria. Let's move on to quickly taking a look at what is the meaning of the term organelle. So I will not explain because mostly I have told what it is. Just read through this slide. I'll wait for another 10 seconds. All right. Moving on to the next slide. What do you see on this slide? Can you all see the animation?
Yes.
So you are seeing that the chloroplasts in the cells are floating or moving around. Had the cytoplasm not been a jelly-like fluid structure, organelles would always permanently remain where they are formed. But that's not the case. They can circulate inside the cell. And the reason is the cytoplasm is very fluid and provides that facility for organelles to move from one region to another within the cell. And also because of that, different solutes can dissolve and diffuse into the cell or diffuse out of the cell because of its aqueous nature.
Is this observed through a light microscope?
Yes, you can see this through a light microscope. In any onion cell, you can see if you have taken a freshly cut onion cell, you can see it under the light microscope. And if it's a properly maintained high magnification lens, you can see the movement of the chloroplasts also in it. This is a small cartoon which tells what would every organelle say if they could talk. I think I shared it in one of the modules. And from the way you see how they're talking, you'll know how important they are for the cell.
Miss Amrita,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 1 hour is over. I mean, it's the time.
Yeah. So we will continue from here. It's already 6:30. I think you guys joined late. So next time, please make sure that you're joining on time. We will actually stop over here and continue to study about nucleus, Golgi, and endoplasmic reticulum in details from the next week's session. You will receive a mail from Mr. Kuba soon about your new schedules. Please make sure that apart from these live classes, you are also engaging on Edmodo modules. If you want to, you can go back to your cell modules and complete all the assignments properly in those modules. And so with the interest of time, we will stop here. If you have any questions, please post on the WhatsApp group. All right. Okay, girls. Thank you. You may leave the meeting for now. Bye-bye.
Bye, Miss Amrita.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.